very successful lawyer earning 7 figures a year. He was a partner with the most prominent law firm in the Low Country of South Carolina, PMP E&D, with the M standing for Murdaugh. His family life was just as successful. He had a wife, Maggie, and together they raised 2 boys, Buster and Paul, on their multi-million-dollar properties. From the outside, it seemed ideal. It seemed like Alec had everything a man could want. But all of that changed on June 7th, 2021, when Maggie and Paul were shot to death on their family property with 2 different guns within moments of each other. Paul was shot in the face and chest with a 12-gauge shotgun, and Maggie was hunted down with an AR-style rifle. Who and why then became the 2 biggest questions connected to this mystery. The first question was answered after a few months when prosecutors arrested Alec for the double murder. It seemed somewhat logical that the last known person to be with the victims ends up being charged. But what doesn't make a lot of sense is why. Why would a father execute his wife and son in such a violent manner? Tonight, we are live from the Low Country with the latest from the courtroom as prosecutors attempt to answer that question for the men and women of the jury.
Welcome to Closing Arguments. I'm Vinny Politan. We are live at Fat Jack's in Walterboro, South Carolina, the small town hosting this really big trial. Great to have you with us. Another big day inside the courtroom, another packed house here at Fat Jack's. Everyone's talking about this case. And when I think of an investigation into a mystery, when the call comes in, right, when the first headline is read that someone was murdered, the 2 things I think about are the same 2 things that one of my favorite detectives from TV thinks about, Briscoe from Law and Order. He would always say in every episode, what's the motive? Motive and opportunity. Opportunity and motive. Who had an opportunity to commit the murder? Who had a motive to commit the murder? That's how they get to the accused killer. That's the road. You figure out, well, who could have been there and who had a reason to kill the victims. It's obvious, but it's not obvious when you're trying to figure out who did it. But those are the questions you have to answer. And when it comes to opportunity, it's pretty simple, right? Who could have been there? But motive gets a little more complicated. And classic motives involving sex, lies, money, we see them all the time on CourtTV. You know, somebody's cheating on somebody, somebody's jealous of somebody, somebody's stealing money from someone. I mean, those are classic motives. It's not a justification for a murder, but it's a reason why someone would commit the unthinkable and take someone else's life. Now, in this case, if we begin with Alex Murdaugh and we take a look at opportunity, that's crystal clear. I mean, through the words of Alex Murdaugh himself, that he was there on the family property where the murders took place. Now, he may not admit being there at the time of the murders or the exact time of the murders, and the defense is doing everything they can to squeeze that window so the opportunity wouldn't exist for Alex Murdaugh to commit the murder. You squeeze the timeline, less of an opportunity. But obviously, prosecutors say there was clearly enough time, especially since what we saw yesterday, which was the video of the dogs with the audio of Alec there just moments before the phones go dead for Paul and Maggie, which is the time prosecutors believe that they were murdered. Now, let's get to the motive. What possible motive would Alex Murdaugh have to kill his family? Specifically, his son. To shoot his son in the face with a shotgun and then grab an AR and chase and hunt down his wife. Like, you don't have to prove it, right? Legally, prosecutors never have to prove a motive. It's not an element of the crime. You don't need to demonstrate why someone did it beyond a reasonable doubt. It's not required. The judge will tell the jury that. The prosecutor, I hope, will remind the jury that. But in a case like this, a case where you're accusing a man of shooting his son killing his wife, hunting her down like an animal, and just blowing his brains all over the dog kennel, he better give him a reason. Something that's plausible. Something that, okay, a jury can say, I get it. I don't agree with it. It's not a reason to kill him, but I can understand what was going on in the mind of this accused killer. Because that's why it's so difficult for prosecutors and why they don't have to prove it, is because you literally have to get inside someone's mind and figure out what they were thinking. Unless they say it to someone, which is rare, and it's not the case in this case, because he says he didn't even do it. So today, inside the courtroom, it really became the center focus of everything, as the prosecutor is fighting to get evidence in front of this jury that they believe proves motive. Part of that motive is about something that happened not here at this courthouse, but in a different town, in a different county, and we hit the road once again. The Murdaugh trial is taking place in Colton County in Walterboro. That's where we've been staying, but today we're heading out of Colton County. We're going somewhere else because prosecutors say on the day of the murders, what happened in Hampton County, where we're going now, is what led to what happened that night when Maggie and Paul were shot to death. What happened behind the walls in this building on June 7th, according to prosecutors, led to the murders of Maggie and Paul. This building is the law firm where Alex Murdaugh worked, the law firm where he was a partner, PMPED. Now, I'm going to get to what happened behind those walls, but let me give you a little history first of this building and this law firm. Alex's great-grandfather founded the firm in 1910, and he started this incredible personal injury practice. And it all started, there was a train accident in front of his home, one of his first big clients, one of his first big cases. And from there, through the years, the law firm grew. And if you look on the front, there's no name of the firm. That's how powerful and how influential and how well-known they are. Now, let's get back to June 7th. On that day, Alex Murdaugh was confronted by an accountant, a bookkeeper inside that law firm about some missing money, $700,000. You see, Alex was a partner of this firm. So partners are supposed to, when they make money, run it through the law firm, because some goes to the firm, some gets divided amongst the partners. And then you get paid at the end of the year. But according to prosecutors, to circumvent all of that, to get the money in his hands quicker and get more money in his hands quicker, they say Alec was settling a case and taking the money and not letting his partners know about it. Well, he was confronted on the 7th, and they say that confrontation was a day of reckoning for Alex Murdaugh, a day where he had to divert everyone's attention away from his financial misdeeds inside this law firm onto something else. And the murders of Maggie and Paul did that.
All right. On June 7th, did the issue come back to a head?
The issue did come back to heads.
Just to be clear, this is June 7th, 2021.
This, yes.
And how much were these fees supposed to be, did you know?
$792,000 in total.
And to this point, the firm had not received those fees, is that correct?
That's correct.
And Chris Wilson's office is saying initially, we already dispersed them.
Yes. And Chris Wilson's not saying anything to me.
Was, to your knowledge, was an inquiry made to Chris Wilson at that time?
Lee Cope, we had not inquired Chris Wilson other than requesting this information at this point in time.
All right. So tell me about June 7th. How does that go?
So on June 7th, I was going to make another run at finding out from Alec if we had their information. I went upstairs to his office is on the second floor, and he was leaning on a file cabinet outside his office. And he turned and looked at me when I came up and said, "What do you need now?" And gave me a very dirty look, not a look that I'd ever received from Alec, from just kind of frustrated with me look, which made me go, "Oh, you want to know? Let's go in your office." So we went in the office and closed the door, and at that point, I told him that I had reason to believe that he had received the funds himself and that I needed proof that he had not.
received those fees himself.
Yes.
And I needed proof that they're not.
Yes.
What did he tell you?
He told me again that he assured me that the money was there and that he could get it. And at that point, I said, I'm just trying to do my job, and if I don't get this paperwork and verify that with these questions, I'm not doing my job. He actually acted like he respected that, and again said that that money was there, and that he again was trying to decide what he was going to be doing with it.
And did y'all get to conclude that conversation, or just something interrupted?
We did not. He took a phone call in the middle of that conversation. That phone call was about his father who was in the hospital, that he was going to be terminal, and that there was nothing else they'd be able to do for his father. So that changed the mood of the conversation. We quit talking about business, and I immediately asked about him and his family and his dad, and, we got talking as friends at that point, concern over the family. And after that, I shortly left, so it briefed and cut down the conversation.
All right. You come in there asking for proof where that money was, because you had reason to believe he took it, and then the conversation ultimately got short by the call about his father.
Yes.
When did you find out about the murders?
I initially found out through the rumor mill around 10:30 or 11 o'clock the evening of them, but I did not get confirmation until I received a text from the partner roughly 2:30 or 3 o'clock in the morning.
The day of reckoning, that was the theme. But here's the catch. All this testimony, jury hasn't heard it yet. All of this taking place outside the presence of the jury. This is what prosecutors want the jury to hear. The defense absolutely does not want them to hear it, because it paints Alex Murdaugh in a much different light, right? This is a guy who's cheating his partners, maybe cheating his clients and everybody else. I mean, someone who does all that might be a little more likely to commit a double murder. All right, time to bring in our guest. Joining me, CourtTv legal correspondent Chan.